The diner was alive with the morning rush, the clatter of plates, the low hum of conversation, and the smell of coffee blending with sizzling bacon. But that peaceful rhythm shattered in an instant. A waitress gasped, a glass hit the table, and in the center booth a woman sat frozen as cold water poured down her face and over her trembling hands that clutched her swollen belly. The waiter, young and smug, stood above her with the empty glass, smirking while his co-workers laughed. They thought it was a joke. They thought she was just another customer to mock. What they didn't know, what would change everything in the next few seconds, was that this quiet, pregnant woman wasn't alone. She was the wife of a biker. And not just any biker, but the leader of a brotherhood known for protecting their own. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories that remind the world what truly matters. It had been a difficult morning for Clara. Her husband, Jack, had left early for a charity ride with his biker group. A tough-looking band of men with leather vests, roaring Harleys, and hearts that quietly beat for good causes. Clara had insisted she'd be fine alone, but the truth was, pregnancy had been hard on her. The nausea, the swollen feet, the stares she got for being a biker's wife. She had once been a nurse, graceful and confident, but lately she felt fragile, as if every step was a test of endurance. When she walked into that diner, she was just hoping for a quiet breakfast, maybe a little kindness from a stranger. But kindness, that morning, was nowhere to be found. The waiter, Ned, noticed her the moment she walked in. He'd already had a rough shift. His boss had yelled at him for being late. His tips were low and his co-workers were teasing him relentlessly. When Clara sat in his section, calm, polite, and visibly pregnant, his irritation turned into arrogance. Maybe he thought mocking her would make him look funny, or maybe he just wanted to feel powerful. Whatever his reason, he started small, rolling his eyes when she asked for decaf, snickering when she requested extra napkins, and making little comments under his breath that the other waiters found hilarious. Clara tried to ignore it. She smiled through it, even whispered a prayer under her breath. "Just let it go, Clara. Don't make a scene." But when she reached for her water and he deliberately splashed some on her plate, laughter erupted from behind the counter. That's when something inside her cracked. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. She had endured too much: judgment, stress, loneliness, and now this humiliation in public. She sat there frozen, eyes glistening, cheeks flushed, her breakfast untouched. The laughter kept going until the door chime rang. 5 men in leather jackets stepped inside. The diner suddenly went silent. Forks clinked down on plates. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The leader, with grey streaks in his beard and eyes that carried storms, scanned the room. His gaze stopped when he saw Clara, dripping wet, trembling, clutching her stomach. And when she looked up and met his eyes, the relief that flooded her face told him everything. Jack's jaw tightened. For years he had been feared by some and respected by many. To the world he looked like a tough biker who rode with a rough crowd. But to Clara, he was the man who'd read poetry to her when she couldn't sleep, who'd kissed her belly every night and promised their child a world full of love and courage. Now that same man saw his wife being humiliated, and something primal rose in him. He walked slowly toward the booth. Every step echoed like a heartbeat in the silent diner. Ned tried to laugh it off, but his smile faltered when Jack's shadow fell across the table. "Everything okay here, sweetheart?" Jack's voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that carried a warning. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she managed a small nod. "It's fine," she whispered. "Let's just go." But Jack didn't move. His eyes were locked on Ned, who stood frozen with the empty glass still in his hand. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Jack reached for a napkin, gently wiped Clara's face, and took her hand. The bikers behind him stayed silent, watching, waiting. Jack looked around the diner, at the laughing waiters now avoiding eye contact, at the customers pretending to look away, at the woman who had just wanted a peaceful breakfast. His voice cut through the room like thunder. "You think it's funny to humiliate someone who can't fight back?" he asked quietly. "You think it makes you strong to laugh at a woman who's carrying life inside her?" Ned opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. His confidence had vanished, replaced by something that looked a lot like shame. Jack didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "My brothers and I," he said, "we've done things we're not proud of. We've seen what cruelty does to people, but we learned something. Respect costs nothing, and kindness can save a soul." The diner stayed silent as he paid for Clara's meal, left a generous tip, and guided her outside. But before he walked out, he turned back once more, his voice softened. "Son," he said to Ned, "don't let your bad day turn you into someone you hate." When the door closed behind them, the laughter was gone. All that remained was silence and guilt. But that wasn't the end. Hours later, as the sun began to set, Ned sat on the curb outside the diner. The scene replayed in his mind over and over. The shame in Clara's eyes, the calm in Jack's voice, the weight of his own actions pressing down on him. He'd thought being cruel would make him feel in control. Instead, it made him feel small. That night, he couldn't sleep. He thought of his mother, who'd raised him alone while working double shifts as a waitress. He thought of the time she came home with tears in her eyes because customers had treated her badly. He had just become one of those people she used to cry about. The next morning, Ned returned to the diner early. He set out flowers on the table where Clara had sat. Roses, bright red, just like the one she'd ordered that morning. He asked the manager for Clara's receipt, hoping to find her number, but there wasn't one. Still, he wrote a note. "I'm sorry for how I treated you. You didn't deserve that. I forgot what respect means. Thank you for reminding me." He left it by the flowers and hoped somehow, some way, it would reach her. A week later, a motorcycle roared into the diner's parking lot. Ned froze when he saw Jack step off the bike. The leader walked in quietly, carrying something in his hand, an envelope. "You Ned?" Jack asked. Ned nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Jack handed him the envelope. Inside was a small photograph. Clara smiling, holding a newborn's ultrasound photo, and a note that simply said, "She forgives you." For the first time in years, Ned felt tears sting his eyes. "How's she doing?" he asked softly. Jack smiled faintly. "She's stronger than she looks. We both are." He looked at Ned for a long moment, then added, "You did something good here. Keep doing it." And with that, he turned and left, the sound of his bike fading into the distance like the closing of a chapter. From that day on, something in Ned changed. He treated every customer like family, not because he was told to, but because he understood now that every person carries battles unseen. When he saw a tired mother, he offered a smile. When an old man came in alone, he sat with him for a moment. And sometimes, when the door chime rang and bikers stopped by, Ned made sure to pour their coffee first, always with a respectful nod. Weeks later, a letter arrived addressed to the diner. It was from Clara. She wrote, "The day you poured that water on me, I felt broken. But your apology healed something I didn't even know was still wounded. People make mistakes. What matters is what they learn from them. Thank you for learning." That letter stayed pinned on the wall of the diner, a quiet reminder to everyone who worked there that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and no mistake is beyond forgiveness. As the years went by, the diner became known not for its food, but for its warmth. People from all walks of life stopped by, drawn by the friendly atmosphere and the story behind it. The story of a man who learned compassion the hard way, and a woman whose grace turned humiliation into healing. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread stories that remind us all of the power, empathy, and second chances. And before you scroll away, tell us in the comments, would you have forgiven Ned if you were in Clara's place? Because sometimes forgiveness doesn't just change one life, It changes everyone who witnesses it.